Right guys, what we're doing is we're going to have a bit of a tool review. Because if you're going to get into clear working, you are going to need tools. So what I've done is I've bought a beginner's set, the sort of set that a complete newbie, a complete beginner is possibly going to be tempted into buying off Amazon or somewhere like that for not a great deal of money. Sorry, this was a 40-piece set which cost £15.99. So I thought we'd go through it. Now I've had a look through, so I've got a fair idea of what's usable, what's valuable, what's rubbish. Now there was a set of 6 plastic tools in here, but as soon as I saw them, I picked them up, threw them away. I've grabbed some out of the bin. I've only been able to rescue 2 of them. Now I would say, without fail, if you buy a set like this that contain plastic tools, throw them away. They're completely and utterly useless for clear work. You either get 2 sets, 2 different types. One where they are just too brittle. As soon as you put any pressure onto a piece to shift the clay, to move the clay around, they snap. And if they snap, they're going to gouge and ruin your pot. The other type is the too bendy, too flexible. I mean, like for instance, this one. That's the central handle section there. No pressure at all. Right? They are just too flexible and snap. So what I would do, as a general rule of thumb, is if you get a kit like this and it has plastic tools in it, throw them away. Now don't get me wrong, you can get some nice plastic tools, but not for clear work. The plastic tools are generally for things like cake making, icing, decorating with icing sugar, things like that. So, bin. Get rid of them straight away. Right, so in this set, which costs £15, they've covered just about every form of clay work you could possibly think of, and included tools for those disciplines. Now the first thing you have here are what I would actually call colour shapers. They're not really for doing clear work, they're not really for pottery or anything like that. Again, they can be useful, especially for if you're working with things like icing sugar, cake making, that sort of thing. But generally they're for blending surfaces together. For instance, like if you're working with pastel colour, that sort of thing. Of these, you might use one of them every now and again. But keep them one side, don't throw them away. The next set that came were these, which are piercing tools. And basically they're for doing really fine work, really fine filigree work. If you're making, say for instance, a little basket, flowery basket, and you want to pierce through and make pierced decoration. That's what these are for. As you can see, some of them are almost like a drill bit, and what you would do is you would drill it through the piece you want to pierce and then pull out. Drill it through and pull out. Again, you've got ball-ended movers. These are more for really delicate work, and even some delicate modelling work as well. If you're doing figurative, like modelling little figures, that sort of thing. There we go. Worthwhile, but if you depends whether you're actually doing that kind of work as to whether or not you'll use them. I might use one of these as a scribe for writing on the bottom of pots, things like that. But again, they're actually worth keeping. They're not, I wouldn't throw them away. Most of these are worth keeping. Now the next thing that we had was some cleaning brushes. To be honest, bin them. They're not worth it at all. They're designed for cleaning these things. But to be honest, you don't need them at all. If you get one of these mucky, just run it under the tap, just run your fingers through. I mean, they give you those brushes just because it's something to do, I think, to be honest. But a good workman would clean all his tools afterwards anyway. Now these ones are sort of, again, they're modelling tools. They're not clay working tools as such, at least there's not heavy duty ones. They're more for sculpting clay, if you're doing portraits in clay, that sort of thing. The gouges and piercing and cutting tools like the loop cutter there, and you've got a gouge there, you've got a pallet, like a pallet there for indenting, again you've got another gouge. So basically clay versions of woodworking tools where you needed to remove tiny amounts of clay, like for instance if you're modelling somebody's eye or something like that. You can use them if you are decorating pots, and this is what I would use these for, if I was decorating pinch bowls, that sort of thing. So again, but they are actually worth having around, because every now and again you'll just think, ah yeah, and there's a spare cutter. If you just got that set, you're good to go still. So they're worth keeping. So next in this set of tools, we've got these hole cutting devices. And basically what they are, they're just a tube which is cut off at an angle like a syringe needle, which you put up to the edge of the clay and just rotate. And it actually cuts a hole exactly where you want them to. Now the problem is with these, they're the right sizes. The most common you will use is this 1/8 of an inch, and then we have 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch or thereabouts, and an inch. You will never ever use this, to be honest. This will keep it, but I very much doubt you'll ever use that. You may every now and again use the 1/2 inch one. Again, not very often though. The two most common you'll use is the 1/4 inch and the 1/8 of an inch. The problem is these are made out of aluminium. They should really be made out of steel, because the walls are thinner and it actually gives you a sharper edge. With these being aluminium, in order to give you the strength of the tubing is a lot thicker walled, and they're not as sharp. I mean, there's hardly any edge to that at all. So they will actually have to be sharpened up with a knife. Just round the front edge, just to give it a little bit of an edge on there. Just get the knife blade. I have to see if I've got one. No, not got one handy. But you literally just put the knife blade in and just take the edge off the inside. So those two, useful. The only problem is, well, not the only problem. Personally, I would rather have these in steel. Now, if you're going to buy them in steel, or even stainless steel, you're going to pay $5 each for them. But they'll last a lot longer and be worth a lot more than these, because these clay is actually quite abrasive, especially if it's got grog in it, which is basically sand, and it'll take the edge. You'll be forever sharpening these, and once the edge has gone off them, you'll be completely. Anyway, but they're worth keeping for up to a certain point. The next things we've got are the tools for throwing on the wheel. Now I think out of all of them, apart from the general purpose clay working tools for things like that, these are the most useful, from my point of view especially. Sponge. You'll always need sponges. The only thing missing from this set is a little strip of chamois leather, which you would use to smooth edges. You'd basically drape it over the edge like that as the wheel spins on the wheel, as the pot spins on the wheel, and it smooths off this top edge. But that's the only thing missing. But the sponge itself, you can use it for soaking up liquid, you can use it for smoothing. They're essential. The next thing we have, which is I think essential, is a rib, but not a steel rib like this. You can use them, but they take a little bit more skill to use, because when you're smoothing, for instance, the inside of a pot, and you're doing that, if you're not careful, this edge will dig in and you end up with a line inside the pot. And when you're smoothing on the outside, if you're not careful again, you can end up with flat spots. Usable, but for the beginner, a little bit too difficult. I'd prefer a rubber one. But there we go. Next thing is this clay cutter. This is actually quite a nice shaped one. The material itself, I think, it's not steel, I think it's aluminium, which is a shame, so it won't last very long. But basically what you're doing, you can use that profile to smooth and shape the inside of a bowl as it goes around on a wheel. You can use it that way up to create an undercut on a slightly bigger bowl. So very useful tools actually. You could actually use it like that to smooth out the bottom of the bowl. So again, useful tool. Then we have a cut-off wire. Now this one's already getting tangled up. I'll have to actually untangle it. But I've already had a look at it. It's too long. It's actually 20 inches long, which is way too long. You need that would have to be cut down to about 12 inches maximum. So what I think I'll do with this is I will actually fold it over, double it, and then retwist it around so it actually becomes a twisted wire cut-off wheel. That's only a single strand. You could really do with 2 strands, if not 3. It just makes things a bit easier, because when you're cutting things off the wheel especially, you put it down on the bottom, you pull it through. A single wire like that will cut through, yes, but you can also end up with a situation where as it cuts through, it reseals again behind it, so it's still stuck down to the wheel head. Whereas if you've got a twisted wire, as you draw it through, it allows air to get underneath, which is ideally what you want, which allows you to just rock the pot off and you're good to go. Right, so that's your cut-off wheel. Cut-off wheel. Your cut-off wire. Usable. The next thing we have is one of these. Bog standard, but this is actually quite a universal one. Now the blades are actually steel, but they're not very good quality. I think they might actually be stainless rather than steel, which is not a bad thing. Got a nice ferrule around the top, so okay, not the most brilliant. But the handle's a little bit thin for me, but very usable. You can use that for scraping out in the bottom. You can use that when it's on the wheel. You could actually push it in underneath and cut a nice foot to the pot while it's actually on the wheel. So that's a useful tool. Now your throwing stick, this one, again, main use for these is to just get it underneath and cut a lip around the bottom of the foot. You can also use it for cutting beveled edges. This end here, it's like a spoon shape. You can actually use it for shaping and smoothing like edges. It's not a bad, it's not ideal, but it's not a bad beginner's throwing stick. Now this is a cut-off needle. A little bit flexible. It's not quite as stiff as I would want it to be. And basically what you do with that is, while the pot is on the wheel, after you've thrown it, sometimes it might have got a little bit uneven. So you basically just line it up on the side of the pot. Yeah? And as it spins, you just press it in and it cuts off the top uneven edge. So a very useful tool to have. This one nicely, if I can find it, comes with a little cover for the needle, so that's a nice touch. Not necessary, but a nice touch. And I would have preferred a little bit thicker handle, but not bad. That is what I would call an essential tool, for especially for throwing. And the next throwing stick you've got, this again I think is well, not essential, but actually quite a useful thing to have, and it's quite easy to use. So if you imagine you're throwing a tube or a vertical sided vase, you can actually push that in on the wheel, push it up to the pot, and as it spins it allows the sides to just straighten up, and you can carefully come up the side of the pot and it just evens out the sides. And if you put your hand inside and put a little bit of pressure on and do that, you can actually even up the thickness of the walls as well. Quite useful too. You can also use that as an undercut. angle it slightly either way to cut underneath a pot. But again, really useful tool if you're using like lower walled pots. Again, that's a really useful tool. It's a really nice tool. Anyway, there we go. So plastic tools, throw them away. So that left us with about 35 assorted tools, of which I think maybe 7 or 8 of them you will use on a regular basis. Now personally, most of them, I mean, for £15 it's not bad, because I've seen these going for £2 or £3 each. A decent rib you're going to pay a couple of quid. Those hole cutting tools, yeah, you're looking at a £5 each. Tools like this, you're looking at £2 or £3 each. So in terms of overall value, not bad, not bad. The problem is you end up with a load of tools you're never going to use. But is that such a bad thing? Anyway, for 15 quid, get rid of the plastic ones. It's not too bad as a starter set. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced, I would actually spend 15 quid on just a nice set of throwing tools or a nice set of carving tools for the clay. Okay, you might only get 5 or 6 tools for your £15, but they'll last you a little bit longer and you can pick and choose. Oh, sorry. Anyway, guys, I hope you found that interesting. Sorry about the coughing. It's not the lurgy, it's actually my throat. Talk again soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.